Hey, Kat Miller here. I am excited to talk to you about this subject. I've been thinking about this subject for so long, and it's why so many women coaches hate selling. And if that's you, how to overcome it. So let's talk about this. If you're a woman coach who doesn't love selling, this video is for you, especially if you find sales conversations to be a bit awkward, to be a bit scripted. If you've learned traditional selling methods from what I call old school selling methodologies. If you feel awkward asking for the money, if you dread having to sell, you don't want to come across as pushy, as inauthentic, as too scripted, if you tend to avoid sales calls. And this is really common among women coaches. And there are multiple reasons why. I'm going to share with you some of my observations, but I'd love to know from you. Why do you think so many women coaches don't enjoy selling? Pop it in the comments. If you're watching here live, I'd love to hear from you. If you're here with us live, if you are watching the replay, if you could just pop a hashtag replay and please just share. Why do you think so many women coaches don't enjoy selling? I started selling my services 20 years ago, and I remember the moment where I realized that I had to actually sell. I had a massive wake up call about it. So I left my job as working for a telecommunications company, and I started a business as a personal trainer in a gym. And I remember going to this weekend business boot camp. It was in 2004. You can't even say 20 back then. 2004. And I remember that we sat in this room and they gave us the sales script. And I remember thinking, I do not want to follow a script. And I also didn't want to fail. So I had this bit of a conundrum of like, do I follow their processes? They obviously know what they're talking about. This is a really multinational gym, really big gym that had a lot of success. So I did try the script because I was just starting out in business and I didn't really know anything. I was, in my 20s, and I was fresh out of, working for probably about 8 years for companies before I actually became my own boss. And so I did try the script, but I also left a heap of stuff out of the script. I remember just going, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That feels uncomfortable. I'll just leave that out. And I also really rushed it because I didn't like it. And I had a massive fear of selling, which I realize now in hindsight that was actually a fear of rejection. And so a few months into selling, I became a bit more confident and I started improving my skills and realizing that it actually worked really well when I had a combination of structure and a combination of flow, and really having dynamic, really great conversations with people and helping them discover what they wanted and how I could help them. And over time, I realized that with practice and with experience, I could actually overcome that fear of rejection and the belief that I wasn't good enough, and the scarcity mindset and all of that. And I've noticed that as I've trained thousands of coaches now to help them with their marketing and sales, that the fear does start to dissolve as we get more competent. So obviously, as our skills increase, then our confidence increases. There's a I guess a concept known in psychology called the competence confidence loop. And so as confidence grows, confidence increases. So I've observed this happening in so many people's sales processes and also marketing and the way we're showing up. When I was putting this video together, I decided to reach out to some of my women coach friends and just ask their thoughts on it. And I asked quite a lot of people why they think that selling is particularly not as loved among women. And here are some of the answers that I got from people. These are from my business friends, coaches that have been in business for quite a while, most of them. We don't want to seem aggressive or desperate. We don't want to reek of desperation. One of my friends said, I think there's actually a mindset that it's unfeminine to sell. Women don't sell, they give. If someone has a need, I should just help them. You can hear that this is a bit of sarcasm, right? Someone says it's about valuing our time and expertise and setting boundaries. Asking for money in exchange for our time and expertise is hard to do in business. when you've let your boundaries be taken advantage of in your personal life. Isn't that interesting? Many women are used to kids, friends, partners turning to them when they need help. So in business, it feels more natural to help for free than to sell. Interesting. This is from one of my male mentors who I highly respect and who doesn't teach pushy sales. He said most women are typically more caring and empathetic, more understanding, better listeners, better at creating emotional connection. For men, there's often more of a focus on money and finance and more of a mission to get the sale. Isn't that interesting? That was from a male mentor. I love that. He shared that. He also said because women are typically so much more relational, I think women can be better at sales if they learn sales skills. Another one of my friends said social training and expectations of how we should behave. We're not told to be assertive. And I've been having voice message conversations about this as well. And all of this has really got me thinking, because most of the women that I know, including myself, that are in business, when we got into this industry, we learned sales from men. And there's absolutely no disrespect to men. I'm not talking about male, female here. I'm talking about masculine, feminine. And I'm talking about what we've been taught from, I guess, decades ago, that's filtered down through books and through seminars and things like that. You know, it's not that these strategies don't work. It's just that for a lot of women, not everything that we've learned has felt aligned, even though we might see that it works out there in the marketplace. There's something about it that feels uncomfortable. And I'm talking more specifically things that I learned from, this is really showing my age, like literally tapes. Like I used to listen to tapes. My mum was into network marketing, and she had a lot of tape series from the sales gurus like Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy. And I love these guys, like they're amazing. But some of these old school techniques that we have been passed down, and it's not from these men specifically. I'm not calling out any men or anything like that. I'm just saying that a lot of what we've been taught was very masculine. It came from door-to-door sales, you know, door knocking, feeling like we're getting interrupted, feeling like we have to defend ourselves. We're going to get backed into a corner. We're going to get all these objection handling techniques thrown at us. And a lot of sales processes were formed from selling cars and encyclopedias and those, you know, microwaves, things back in the day. And so at the time, I didn't really think about it, but I realized that some of the courses that I did many years ago, like I'm talking 20 years ago, some of them gave techniques that I found very uncomfortable. And so when I first started learning sales, I knew that I didn't want to push anybody. I knew that I didn't want to talk anyone into doing anything that they didn't want to do. But I almost swung too far on the other way of being really casual and being like, yeah, it's all good. Have a think about it. No worries. And I would almost talk people out of the sale because I was so scared of being hyper masculine, pushy, aggressive, desperate, that I would almost be either indifferent or apologetic, almost like, oh yeah, I know. And I would almost like put words in their mind to just think about it, as opposed to sitting with them and having the bravery to feel uncomfortable as people go through their own process of realizing that they are in pain and there's a consequence and there's a trajectory that they're on if they don't jump out of that. And actually being okay to ask some of those conversations in a loving and kind and empathetic way to actually help people to overcome the stuff in their way to invest in themselves. Because this is really what true, authentic, elegant selling is about people investing in themselves and us as coaches being detached from the outcome but fully committed to the person. And I think this is what the difference is. I'm not saying that there's masculine selling that's bad and feminine selling that's good. My view is that it's both. We actually need both because this pendulum swing that swung away from what we don't want, and I've done this myself, and I've probably left thousands of dollars on the table because I didn't own my worth. I didn't value myself enough and value my services enough to actually really sit with someone as they were going through a breakthrough. And my need to be liked overrode actually that person's breakthrough. And people, when they're about to make a buying decision, excuse me, they sometimes go through what that almost all the time go through a level of discomfort that we want to jump out of because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So we say, "Oh, I don't want to be that person." But in some ways, we can swing to this extreme where we're actually not caring about that person because we feel uncomfortable and therefore we exit the conversation too quickly. And this was a massive, a massive revelation for me because I realized that I was actually doing people a disservice and I was actually leaving people in their pain by not taking the time to really help them go through the process to have a breakthrough because buying begins their breakthrough. This is one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite mentors, Ben Harvey, who is excellent at selling in a way that feels not one of these extremes. And so I've learned a lot from him about how to really sit with people in their pain, sit with discomfort of people making changes. Because think about when you've bought, think about when you've made a significant purchase decision and someone's been patient with you. Someone hasn't rushed you to get off the phone because they're so scared of coming across as pushy that they are like, right, we've got 10 minutes, my time's valuable. It's like, oh, okay, I have to rush this decision. I'm out. You know, it's almost like people are so scared of being this pushy car salesman that they almost become a little bit. I think as women, we care so much about the relationship that we want to be friends with them as opposed to sometimes just help them. And so I do believe there's a sweet spot and a beautiful balance. Those of you that have joined me, it is so lovely to see you here, Darlene. Absolutely, you can catch the replay because I am dropping a lot of a lot of things here, and I'm happy to send you my notes, Darlene. So feel free to write notes in the comments if anyone wants notes. I have written a lot of notes on this because I have so much to say. Okay, let's jump into where I feel this has come from. So I've studied women a lot. I've bought books like The History of Wonder Woman, and I love studying women in business and the history that women have gone through. Like the fact that we didn't get the vote, you know, I think New Zealand was the first country in the world where it was, you know, not much more than 100 years ago, right? So the generations, the modeling, the language, the things have been passed down to us from our mums, from our grandmas, from their mums, where women literally were oppressed and didn't have any power. And some of this is shocking when you think about it, that it's not common 100 years ago for a woman to have a business. And there's realities that have changed the landscape of business, but there's still almost like a hangover from what's happened in the past. And it takes a long time to turn a big ship. You know, it's not like we can just suddenly switch and women are fully empowered and we can just go out and rock every aspect of business. You know, that this is happening. Fortunately, we've got amazing role models now. We've got a lot more women who are doing it, but there still typically hasn't been a lot of role models for powerful women coaches. You know, if you think about how many women coaches do you know are earning 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures a year compared to, I guess, the mass population, you know? And so there's a reality here for women, and I think partly it's the way we're wired as women, most of us in general. It's the relational side and the emotional side, but also just history. I was looking at Sarah Blakely's Instagram recently, and she had a video up there about when Sarah Blakely, the creator of Spanx, she shared that women could only apply for a credit card without their husband's signature in 1974. That was just wild to me to think about, like 1974. And she said, do you know what year women were granted the right to get a business loan on their own without a man co-signing? 1988. What? Think of all the businesses that it could have started by women before that. And I saw a comment under that video that said, Sarah, thanks for posting this. My parents were just denied a home loan in the 1970s because the lender would not accept my mum's income. Since she was in childbearing years, even though she was the one with consistent work history, it took proof of my dad's vasectomy for the bank to consider that my mum's income was dependable. We've truly stood on the shoulders of the women before us to be taken seriously, and yet there is still much work to be done. So I do think that history and the power that women didn't have does impact us as women, and it has been passed down. So I've observed that the way women want to sell and do sell is actually quite different to most men. And our level of, I guess, comfort with different types of sales strategies are different. So why does selling bring so much contraction? And I touched on it before, where sales was really, the sales process was primarily salesmen selling things like vacuum cleaners, and these methods do not work for most of us women. And so we're left kind of saying, well, I feel a bit silly if I don't use these techniques that are meant to work. But most of us are selling, well, as coaches, all of us are selling a transformation process that requires deeper engagement and connection. And so if you think about the feminine energy, which is magnetic, we don't want to shove it in people's faces. We want to have a really nice rapport and relationship, whereas masculine energy is more penetrative, like it pushes itself kind of out. And so because we're selling these really deeply vulnerable and personal and impactful services, the entire way that we connect with people is often different. And so we don't want to be convincing. I listened to a podcast about this. One of my favorite podcast teachers or podcasters, whatever, is Brooke Castillo. She has a podcast called The Life Coach School. And she was interviewing a lady called April Franks, and they had a really fascinating conversation about how men are more penetrators and women are more attractors, because masculine energy it projects and feminine energy receives and supports. So you can kind of understand it when you look at all these dynamics from a psychological standpoint, how most men and women are very different, and it's very helpful to look at these things. And because we're all a combination of masculine and feminine energy, I truly believe that we can bring both to our marketing and to our sales in a really beautiful and effective way. And it's about focusing on helping someone be fully empowered to make a smart decision for themselves. No convincing, no pushing, engaging with people on a real heart-to-heart human level. And we can be authentic and sell in a way that we would be grateful to be sold to. Think about the way that you like to be sold to. And so we want to have more flow. We want to know that the person is feeling understood and valued and cared for. And so there's another layer that I want to touch on, which is that a lot of women know that what they offer is really worth good money. They know that intuitively. They know that if they get the right person in front of them, that they can really help them transform their lives. But they consistently don't ask for what they're worth, whether that's from old money stories, old beliefs we may have heard from our parents or teachers growing up, or media messages that can sabotage us charging our worth. So I do think it's more than just selling. I think there is a conversation about money, and particularly if you look at the link of how we were denied business loans and credit cards, for centuries. And so while we know that we need to sell in business, a lot of us will literally sabotage ourselves, and then get resentful. And this is less just about selling, more about our ability to receive money for what we offer, like good money. And the reason I think this is so important is because something I've observed with women is that we are great with influence and we are great at selling when there's no money involved. Think about how you sell your friends. Think about how you will say to your girlfriend, oh my gosh, there's this massive sale at David Jones. Go and buy your boots for the winter. We sell on these ideas because we don't want our friends to miss out. And I heard a story once where men often they'll see a sale and they won't tell their men friends because they're like, I want to, this protector provider energy of like, I want to protect and provide for my family. I don't want everyone else to have it. Whereas women are more like, tell everyone, let's all be looked after. And so if there is something that we think our girlfriends will genuinely love, we tell everyone. I think about the WhatsApp groups I'm part of, and if there's this Groupon deal at the moment where there's a movie cinema, beautiful old theater, and they're doing half price tickets. And I was like, I need to tell everyone about this. And we do it because we love people, go to this restaurant. I found this awesome thing on sale on Instagram, so we are constantly spreading the word about things we like. Mums are constantly selling their kids on do their homework, tidy their room, eat their vegetables. Women are amazing at selling. And I find it interesting that sometimes when women get in the business world, they kind of shrink that ability to influence, and they ignore the fact that they're already very influential and they have been selling, but it's more about the actual money conversation and having confidence in what you offer and not attaching your personal value to what you sell. And I think in general, men are better at this than we are because they separate it and they say, this is my product, whether that's coaching or whatever they're offering, and they separate it from their own self-worth. And there's so much research to back up the confidence that men have compared to women, for a whole host of reasons. And of course, there's exceptions, but the reason you became a coach is because you have something valuable to offer to people and you want to help people. And so I do believe that it's our responsibility to get it in front of people and be really clear on the value. Be really clear so that you can be more confident on the price. Because when you know that the value that you offer provides so much transformation that it's worth way more than what someone's going to pay for it, then you'll be way more confident when you're selling. When people buy, they're investing in themselves. So when I think about selling, what I think about is that I'm letting people know that I can help them to transform their lives, that I have something incredibly valuable to offer, and it's worth every cent to get the result that my offer gives. And so I do think that as women, we need to be out there more, sharing what our value, actually charging well for it. And I want to kind of touch on how we stop being afraid to be seen as selling and how to actually overcome some of these things, because it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. If you have this underlying fear and doubt and low self-worth, we need to do the inner work to change that, because our results all change from that inner work under the surface. It all starts with our mindset. And so all those thoughts of not being good enough, all the doubts, all the fears, all the uncertainty are there under the surface. And if you're not strong in your confidence and your self-worth and your value, if you haven't done that work and you're not strong in that area, it's going to keep coming up. You're going to keep hitting up against it and it's going to hold you back. You're always going to feel like you can't charge X amount, and you're going to keep thinking, who am I to charge this? I don't deserve it. I don't want to get rejected, and so on. So you need to get coached on it. And the other thing I recommend is always spend time with people that help you overcome that fear and doubt. So listen to books by women who are making a lot of money. Like Jen Sincero, for example, she's got a great book called You Are a Badass at Making Money. She was broke and now she's rich. And she talks about it in a really beautiful, relatable, funny way. Get around people who are making good money from coaching. This is what I struggled with. I didn't see a lot of successful women coaches earning good money. And so I decided, well, I'm going to be the one. And I know that there's a lot, but they just weren't in my world. And so start hanging around people who are earning the kind of money that you want to earn as a coach, because it will build your belief and it will build that inspiration and your confidence. And we need to also start really tapping into our value and having that strong why, like why it's important to us, because people's transformations are at stake. You know, most of us realize that we're really falling short of our potential, and there's so much more that we could be doing. And I want to put it like this: if you don't have a whole heap of sales conversations booked into your calendar right now, like if you look for the next 30 days, how many sales conversations have you got booked in? Or even look back for the last 30 days, it probably is a sign that you're avoiding selling if you don't have, you know, all these sales calls booked in. And confidence comes when we're competent. You know, if we don't have confidence, we get tentative, we procrastinate, we don't follow through, we avoid, we get busy. But when we start to let go of the fear, we do the inner work, we start to take action more often. And how do we get more confident? It comes back to the confidence competence loop. As we become more competent, more skilled in selling, our fear starts to decrease and our confidence starts to grow. You need to ask yourself, do I need to actually get better at specific parts of the sales process? Do I need to learn more about how to qualify people, how to open sales conversations, how to present my offer, how to close a sales conversation? Because if you don't address those practical sales skills and your competence in them, it's almost impossible to be confident and love selling. Why would you love something that you're not good at? Ultimately, right? You'll avoid it if you don't enjoy it, if you're scared of it, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, of course you're going to avoid it. So as you get better at it, obviously you'll start enjoying it more. As your confidence grows, your competence will grow and vice versa. And getting clients and growing your business to where you want it will become inevitable. So I remember in a sales conversation where I was about to sign up to a program once, I remember the person said to me, sales is the skill that you don't want to learn, but you must learn because it is what puts money in your bank account. And I remember that really stood out to me. That was probably 10 or more years ago, and I still remember it. So if you want to get better at selling, you want to face it, you're sick of avoiding it, reach out to me and let's have a conversation about how we can improve this for you, how we can get more money in your bank account, how we can get you actually enjoying the sales process, stop avoiding it, and actually start earning what you're worth as a woman coach, making a massive difference in people's lives. I hope this has been helpful. Please pop in the chat, in the comments, what has been most helpful for you, what has stood out to you, and any thoughts that have come up through this video. I would love this to be a conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And thank you for being here. Keep showing up, keep shining, keep sharing. The world is waiting for your words. Bye, my friends. Have a great, amazing, beautiful day.